Let's go, folks. We got a good one for you. Possibly a precursor to a growth vault resurgence. Lazarus Project over here. One of my good friends, one of the smartest thinkers, blue flame thinker in the space, wonderful human, and a muse of mine. Previously at Pencil, now at Heat Map, and then maybe we'll break some news, but possibly going full hog on his new venture. So there's lots to talk about. Pitesh Mohseni, welcome to the show, brother.
What is up, guys? It is incredible to be here and right back at you, dude. I take so much energy from you. Our voice note wars are something of legend.
Man, the mind meld is already starting because I was just going to say this is the one man that I think can actually go toe-to-toe to me on voice notes. But I will say you're smarter than me. I think after like 15 minutes worth of voice notes, you're like, fucking dude, I'm just going to call you. Are you around?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's actually a much smarter idea. Let's just call. So Chase, for people that don't know you, how'd you get started in this whole crazy thing? Where were you? Where are you at? Where are you going?
I think any person that I find really interesting always has a really weird pathway into this thing. And so I started out as a filmmaker, studied that in school, have two very meaningful degrees in said thing. Started trying to make indie movies, made one, had a few things fall apart. And I got into e-com because I was working with a fashion company and they said like, hey, what do we do with these beautiful videos that you're making? We'll pay you extra money. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm very poor. And so I started, this is in the OG days where you could turn a couple knobs in Facebook and it would just print money. No problem. It wasn't about creative back in those days. It was just, can you slog through this piece of shit? And I worked my way up at that company. I was there for a while. They had a studio of different brands. So I just kind of ran a couple of the e-commerce brands. They were mainly retail, but they were breaking in. When I worked at an agency, then I worked at another tech company. And from there, I was still on the consumer side of tech.
Yep.
And I was still doing just performance marketing. It wasn't like being in true B2B SaaS. But from there, I moved to Pencil, and I was there for 3.5 years, up until after we got acquired. And then I moved to Heatmap. And so kind of the story is filmmaker turned e-com marketer turned SaaS marketer. Like you want to kind of go in chapters. And if you had told me 10 years ago I would be doing this, having this conversation, I would have laughed at you. Like, yeah, dude, I'll be fucking in Mallorca shooting a commercial, you know? But I kind of like this better, if I'm being honest with you. Being on set is pretty miserable. Yeah.
It's like political until it isn't. Like until you get to kind of the Nolan, Scorsese level, like there's a lot of weird politics and stuff. And even then, like if you mess it up, like what they did with Nolan, like this dude is arguably one of the only people you could give a bazillion dollars to, like hundreds of millions of dollars of a budget, and there's a very high probability he's going to turn it into a profit. And then you fuck him over and he's like, cool, all right, I'm never working with you guys ever again, and goes to the other rival studio. Like I can't think of a more, maybe the Nike Steph Curry for the sporty ball people is like the analogy there of losing this just like absolute there. He's one on, there's basically maybe 2 to 3 producers you can give that kind of big budget to that you have a very high probability that it's not going to be terrible. And
like a guarantee, just like a guarantee,
almost guaranteed profit. And they really messed that up. So do you miss it at all though?
I mean, you and I storytell all the time. I get to kind of flex that muscle pretty regularly. I think all the politics and one of the other things that's really frustrating is time cycles of creation and 100%. Like creative validation.
100%.
So I have a friend. He was 10x better writer than me, and he's still struggling to get something made.
Yeah,
he's been paid for a bunch of stuff, but like nothing has actually hit the screen. And this dude is brilliant, way more polished, way better at everything. Like, dude, if this guy can't get something made. Like, oh, what chance do I have? So I don't miss how I feel about it. Like, yeah, storytelling's fun, but we get to do it already. So I kind of like. I also like the idea of what we do helps people in a different way, and we help them tell their stories in different ways. Well, that shit's all framing, you know. Yeah, I don't really miss it that much though. At all.
I'm with you, man. I was a big because I grew up in Indiana. I was a big basketball guy, and I was like good, but fundamentally very good. But dude, I'm like 5'9". Tell the girls I'm 5'10". I have a decent vertical, like 30-inch vertical, but not jumping through the gym. Short arms, and as you go through the kind of ranks, dude, I was just starting to just absolutely blow past people, easy layup, and people just jump through the gym with arms longer than God and still block me. And I was like, dude, I'm tired. It was kind of analogous to what you're saying. Like, dude, I'm not playing games I can't win anymore. Like, I'm fundamentally better than all these people, and it just didn't matter because I was playing a game that I couldn't win. And so I feel like that was where maybe you were butting up into that, where you see, because I had the same thing where I, even in running, like, obviously got to bring it back to my glory days as always. In running, dude, every D1 runner was the high school stud. Like, everybody is good in D1. Like, everybody is really fucking good in D1. And there was just people driving different cars, man. It was just like, dude, on my best day and their worst day, I'm not beating these people. No chance. One thing that's been really enlightening, because you and I talk almost every day, well, minus the offsite stuff, you seem to found a stride in unlocking kind of a personal productivity system for not only your business output, but also, like, without getting too personal, on the personal side, where it seems like things are going really well on both sides. And that's been something I've always struggled with, because I've, luckily been able to be very successful. I mean, not always. It's slower than you think, faster than you think. But in my professional life has always been really good. But there's always been these ebbs and flows, whether it's my physical fitness or health, or, candidly just making trade-offs where I'm not showing up in relationships, whether that's intimate relationships or, friendships, very well. And it seems like you've unlocked a lot. One, how did you do it? And two, what does your systems look like?
First, caveat emptor. It's going to sound like this is all figured out. This is a work in progress, experimentation and optimization happening in real time.
Yep.
So something recent I've unlocked is nothing of meaning is going to happen after 6 o'clock in your business anyway.
Ooh,
that's a Nick Harris. So that's not a Chase Mohseni. That's a Nick Harris for the kids.
We love that guy. We love that guy.
And anything you do after 6 p.m., you're just stressing out your team.
God, I'm going to tweet that out. That is so good.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing.
So good.
And so if you sit here and you're like, okay, well, what am I actually doing after 6 p.m.? Well, I'm catching up on stuff. And if they need to reach me, they'll hit the bat phone. It's not there's nothing that's seismic that's going to happen. And a lot of people value motion over output.
Ooh, that's a bar.
I've been that person. So I'm putting my hand up and saying I've been that person. And so what I did recently, and this is something that I'm working on right now, is like, what do I cover? What are the most essential things I need to know on a daily basis to be able to ask good questions? And how does that align to being the person who holds the vision of said company in their hands? Right? Because if you lead a company, you are the soul of the company. And so what do I need to ask the right questions to make sure that people are aligned to those things? And how can I be as clear as humanly possible? So what I came to is like, and I could go and find the sheet. I've sent you a screenshot of it, but like there's like 5 to 6 primary things that I'm working through on a daily basis. And there's like 5 questions underneath that I need to ask. And I'm just going to dedicate 1 day a week to each of those things. And yeah, there's going to be things that come up, but like, hey, I'm going to go look at finance. I'm going to go through all of the balance sheet stuff. What's going in, what's going out? How does that align? Is that tracking right against what we're doing? And you're going to say, oh, well, there's someone else that should do that. Sure. but there's things that they're not going to see and connect. Right. And so I told you the kind of one of the frameworks I have of why this is really important is someone who runs a business is the soul of the company. They're supposed to understand the vision and how it applies to people and how it applies to money. But really, you're the chief information synthesis officer of the business. You're the person who takes all the information from all these disparate folks and make sure that it is aligned and there is perfect alchemy as much as there possibly can be. So like,
Yes,
that's the first portion of that. Now, how do you do that between 9 and 6? Right? Well, you stop taking bullshit meetings.
Yeah.
You make sure that other people know what their job is, and you're very clear about the things that are done. You reduce the amount of output and you focus on the amount of impact, right? And so again, very early stages of this, but I'm seeing this like weird feeling. You said it to me like, dude, you're feeling very calm and clear. The other one is like a realignment on like, if all this shit goes to hell, who's going to be there? And it's not to denigrate any person on your team, but like they have to take care of themselves. They are the CEO of, Rabah and Chase, Bob Inc., Becky.
Investors ain't your friends. Like, and there's
No.
nothing wrong with money, and I'm a big capitalist, but at the end of the day, like you said, everybody needs to be, or
they're self-interested, and they should be.
And they should be.
Yeah,
And those relationships are built on financial outcomes, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's other relationships that aren't.
By the way, like employee-employer is a financial pact you've made. And so
sports
they should
team
be self-interested, dude.
Sports team is a way better analogy than family. I hate the family analogy.
Exactly. And dude, you can be incredibly close and be so dedicated to those people that are on your team. But if they get a better offer and they can go somewhere they need to go and take care of their family better, like I'm not going to be angry with them for doing said thing because I've done the same fucking thing. So that's the first one. The second, like that. So it's like the chief information officer and kind of distilling everything down to its core first principles of what you need to do and questions you need to. The second one is, I'm not going to do extra work outside of work hours. That's not just deep thinking stuff. Like I take a shitload of notes on my phone, right? That's fine. I can be sitting with my kids doing that. But over the last call, like 2, 3, 4 months, I've been closing my computer, not going back to it and saying, hey, look, I'm going to just spend time with my wife. And there's this weird recharge that happens. And spoiler alert, hanging out with your family and sleeping enough is actually a amazing drug for being good at your job. It is we never would believe that. And my framework is going to come back to this. I'm going to bring it all back. Rob, I'm a TLDR at the end, not the beginning of a diatribe. There's a time in your life to use your body as a weapon. There's a time to use your mind. I'm not in the body as a weapon anymore. Yeah. We have now gone to a place where my mind is my weapon. And if I keep using my body as a weapon, my mind will not be sharp. So what do I got to do to feed that fucker? That is it. So every time I go and I have this like urge to go late, I'm like, oh, going body, trying to go back to the whole thing. And Ed Milet, some people might roll their eyes that I listened to Ed Milet. He said something, and I'm going to shut up. I'm looking at you. He said, getting 90% better than everyone else in the world is only 50% of the work. The last 50% is harder because now you're here and you're with all the D1 runners, and they were all the stars. They were all the stars of teams. So you've got to play much different games than you did before. And so my mind is shifting like, okay, I did this whole way. I used my body. I pushed myself. Now I got to change everything. Like, I know what hard work is. I'm going to be able to still throw a 98 mile an hour fastball, but I'm not going to throw it all game until I need that out. But if I throw it every single pitch, it's not going to be valuable because I'm going to only throw a 93 mile an hour heater, and that shit's going out.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. Rogan has a good line where be uncommon amongst uncommon men. And like, that's the thing. That's the last kind of decile that you're talking about of like, man, everybody's already figured it out. And like, how do you, yeah, dude, that's beautiful. The other thing I would touch on, so at our offsites, the CEO here at Firma, Rishab, gives us like book club. And so we read oldie but goodie, good old Pete Druck, Mr. Drucker, or The Effective Executive. a really good book, actually. Some people didn't like it as much as I did. I thought it was sensational. But there's a little bit of kind of like those common sense kind of nonsense, or not nonsense, but like common sense platitudes of like, yeah, no shit, like you want to be rich, make money, like, oh, cool, man. But there was something in there that really landed with me because I am very anti-meeting, and I think that is the only person in the company that shouldn't be anti-meeting is the CEO, because it's exactly what you just said. And this is why Rishabh doesn't have the same disdain as I do for meetings, because his job is not to build. His job is literally, like you said, to poke into all these different departments and understand what's going on and where can I bolster, who do I need to cut, like how do I resource my army in the most meaningful way. And that just got me thinking that, man, meetings to me, like, are a sign of communicational dysfunction. You cannot communicate enough in a high fidelity enough way that I need to talk to a person, versus when you have proper comms infrastructures. I'm actually going to nuke all my one-on-ones. I'm going to go for it. Brian Chesky doesn't do it. Jensen Huang doesn't do it. I like
Top five things, dude. Top five things. Top five things emails, dude.
Yeah, if these guys can do it, why can I? And I'm actually, I have a lot of weaknesses, but I also have a lot of strengths. And one of my strengths is systems. And I have a very robust system in place right now where I don't need to be popping into it. And I'm taking your approach as well of, instead of Microsoft, I'm structuring my life more like Apple, where I am going into the functions of my marketing org versus the kind of management of my marketing org. Like, it's been you've been a lot of inspiration on that, but I've just found myself like, dude, I'm in all these meetings. And then I finally got Rishabh on board, where my like Monday through Wednesday is like, that's when I am just superhuman, especially that kind of 9 to noon, 9 to 1 p.m. local time. I'm just ready, dude. And my previous setup was Monday through pretty much half of Wednesday was all meetings. And so I'm using the most expensive time on the least output activities. And I told Rishabh, I was like, dude, man, can we change? So now we finally moved our L10 leadership to Friday, which also like
super smart.
Well, because for me, dude, Fridays I'm already cooked. So I was getting to a place where Tuesday I hated my life. I'm not doing anything. I didn't build. All I did was just meetings. And dude, I don't care how well you run a meeting. Nothing gets done in a meeting, dude. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. And I am very no agenda, no attenda. I've done everything I can to like optimize my schedule. But at a certain point, like, until you're the CEO, you really still don't make your schedule. Like, my schedule is optimized to the point of the preference of my CEO, my boss. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But to his credit, he was very receptive on trying new things. Because here's what I saw. I told him, I was like, I'm going to run an incrementality test. We're going to nuke all these things. And if we start seeing shit flying off the rail, stuff isn't working, et cetera, I have no problem bringing them back on. But if they don't, then we know that they were absolute wastes of time. There was nothing getting out of them. There was nothing productive out of them. Like, if your goal was just to get information, I can build you artifacts that you can consume asynchronously. And then if you need something, you can ask me. But just having meetings to have meetings is just, dude, it's the bane of my existence. And honestly, I think that's where BC players hide. I don't know any A players that like meetings, dude. I don't know any A players. Like, when you say, hey, let's have a meeting, almost always it's a B or C player. Almost always. And again, I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just, there is nothing good that happens in meetings. True work happens by yourself, dude. It does. That's not to say you shouldn't synthesize things together and you don't have teams working together, but nobody codes together. Nobody builds marketing plans together. You do it on your own, man. That's when real work happens. And I have found that I have drifted so far away from my core truth with managing and meetings and all this stuff, where it's like, dude, going back to your point, it doesn't recharge me. And what also happens is, 6 o'clock hits and I need some sort of drug. So I'm going to go try and build. And then I'm just cooked because I'm never recharging. I'm never doing anything for myself. And I didn't get any actual feeling. Like one of the worst things, or for me, one of the worst feelings in the world is when you worked all day, quote unquote, and it felt like you got nothing done. Like none of your objectives, none of your things got pushed forward because you're in meetings all day. You're catching up with Billy, seeing what Susie's up to. Oh, Rabah, can I pick your brain about this call or that? Like, fuck that, dude. So I'm going on my kind of like ruthless era where I'm basically just nuking all my meetings and working on the things that I know are going to have the highest business impact. And I don't know, we'll see where it lands. Maybe it's the wrong choice, but I just need to change something because it is just the recipe for burnout.
Welcome to being a CMO of a SaaS company. You're saying I don't build or do anything. I was like, tracks.
Yeah, I mean, or go ahead because I have a question about that.
Also, my only one build or pushback on that is, I think there are different levels to this, and so when I ever find success in having a meeting, it's because there's either been some level of a pre-read that leads into a working document that you can collaborate on with only executives, like someone who's on your level. But if you're going to go and collaborate with the people who work under you, it's just going to be a lot of talking and unnecessary motion where you could get all 85 to 90% of the information, which you didn't need the last 10% anyway, and you get an hour of your time back.
Dude, I can think of very few things that I hate less than decision by committee. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't synthesize and take other people's opinions, but again, I don't need to like group brainstorm. Everybody already does the brainstorm. You come in, you present your ideas. That's cool. That's not cool. Tell me more about this. Convince me. No. Okay, cool. Move on. And I completely agree with you. And again, for me, it hasn't been a meeting structure thing. Because to be fair, the L10 meeting has actually been fairly useful. But outside of that, it's just like, dude, I don't need these one-on-ones. Like I have these really robust one-on-one docs that people fill out. I'm like, dude, I can just read these. Like I don't need to catch up or do these things. Like again, I'm sounding a little more ruthless than I am where these are people and you want to be involved in their lives and support them in the pursuits they have outside of work. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying don't waste my good time on that. Like if you want to have a meeting with me, have a meeting with me on Friday because I am cooked on Friday. And this is just throwaway time anyways. Why not? I can just use cheap time on cheap activities perfectly.
So that's pretty fucking sweet. So cheap time on cheap activities. And I do think there is a certain amount of it's actually good going into the weekend to do some of this alignment, because what happens over the weekend is you're able to synthesize information because you're not in the throes of doing the fucking thing.
And there's none of this passive language. Like you get this Elon Musk, what have you done this week? So it's like you have nothing to bring to me on Friday. Like literally, what did you do all week? Like whereas Mondays, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this done or that done. Don't tell me that. Like, let me talk to me about what you built and what you're going to do next week. Amazing.
Yeah.
Boom. Run
based
it again.
On what you learned.
Boom.
Based on what you learned. Yeah.
Boom. Run it again. Cause I just find passive language. That's when front loading the week with meetings. That's what happens is like, dude, I don't care about the planning. I care about the output. Like the planning, you're an adult. You can plan. You don't need me to plan your day. I tell you what I need when I need it, and you figure out how to do it. That's literally what the money's for. So anyways, that's
the hardest thing though, dude. Like, getting really clear on the fact that you're an adult and I'm going to treat you like one. The biggest challenge of hiring people is you're dealing, just like in a relationship, you're dealing with the 5 past relationships that they had. You're trying to essentially 100%. Unpack, like, how were you parented? 100%. How was their 100%. Last significant other with you?
Communication style preference.
Like there's all of these different things. And I think great thing about you and I being able to chat and challenge each other and have all these conversations is you might say like, hey, I'm in my ruthless era. That Friday thing. You know, honestly, dude, I'm going to implement that going forward. Like, if it's not something that's categorically necessary that day, Fridays are just going to be meetings because I know that I'm not building anything meaningful and I kind of want to get as much information as I can going into a weekend.
It's a corollary for you, and it also is a forcing function of your team.
Yeah.
If I show up to my meeting on Monday, you're like, okay, cool, just checking in with me on Fridays if things got done or whatever, and that never happens. If you come
No.
into my meeting on Friday and you have nothing to talk about,
Oh, oh.
brother, like if you get to a place when your boss is asking you, what do you do all day? That's you better fix that real quick. If not, you're not even gonna get pipped, brother. That's here's a
It's
month's severance. Keep the laptop. We're graduating you. Like that is not the path to be in. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and again, this is all for people listening. You're gonna find your management style and your management vibe as you get into a leadership role. But I am more of a builder than most managers, and that's where I get. And that's not to say like I'm literally in IC work, but it's like, dude, I'm building marketing plans. I'm working on moonshot marketing. I'm thinking of different ways we can collaborate. Like I'm in my zone of genius, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm getting paid all this money. Not to say, hey, we should turn this knob to optimize our paid media. Like, no, that's not what they're paying me all this money for. They're paying me for all this money. Like, hey, paid media is going to be a part of our ecosystem. This is how we're going to resource it. This is the strategy. This person's going to implement it. Boom. And then you go check in. Like you can't. That's one of the challenges that I had. And shout out like at my first CMO gig, Triple Whale, AJ had a really hard conversation with me, man. He was like, hey, dude, you're great. And if you want to be here forever and you can be an absolute killer IC and we'll pay you and life will be good, but I need a CMO, not an IC. And I had to take, look at like what I was doing. And I was like, hey, you're right. I need to be doing these CMO things, not these IC things. And to be fair, this is why early stage CMO sucks. You have to wear both hats in a little way, but you have to know when you need to graduate and say, hey, I can no longer do this. I need resources. And life's about trade-offs, man. And you need to go to your boss and you say, hey, if you want me to be the CMO, I'm game for it. Here's how we're going to implement it. These are the resources I need to get it done. And this is when I need to stop doing these things because me spending 8 hours a week on writing this incredible newsletter made sense at the beginning. It doesn't make sense now.
Dude, one other thing, and this is like a interesting transitionary period for me thinking about like what is the difference between these things. And like one of the things I see a lot of CEOs struggle with is clarity. Like,
super hard.
they don't, I would say one of the things that I have grown into, I wasn't like this before, is being super clear on what I expect out of people, what the outcomes need to look like, how I feel about how they're doing things. So like, dude, for instance, hey, I want more budget unlock. Someone will say that to me. So, well, show me why, right? Well, this and this reason. No. Why? Because you haven't proven that you can keep this efficiency at this scale while keeping ecosystem running. You want budget for both things. So essentially you're saying to grow this meaningfully, to have the same numbers, you're going to spend 75% more dollars. Like that just doesn't work, right? But before I would have been like, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that. And when I say no, you need to prove out one before you have the other, people go like, okay, got it. And I say, I would, if I was you, make ecosystem free and make sure that you just work on that stuff and like grind on it and push the paid so that you can say paid doesn't actually scale ecosystem as the thing that scales, right? But before I would have just said like, no, I don't know. I've been a little wishy-washy with the whole thing. And I think a lot of leaders really struggle with actually giving people very clear directives on things because they're trying to live in the EQ zone of impact. And I think it's really important. It's really important to have that on an interpersonal level when you're working with your team and managing them specifically. But I have not encountered one situation to this point where I have been clear and direct that is not in the balance worked out in the positive. And so what that tells me is people just want to know what lane they should be swimming in and what their sandbox looks like. And I know I'm mixing analogies, but like everyone just wants to know where they should play, how they should play, and what they should do. And then they're going to go and kill it for you.
100%.
But if they don't know, they're going to be just feeling in the dark, trying to figure out what's actually meaningful and what's going to drive impact to the business. And then they're going to be afraid that you don't know, and they're going to blame you for not giving them the right way to do stuff.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, again, this does really go back to what leadership style you are and what culture you want to build as your company. Um, because we have for a San Francisco company, there's just a different culture that is cultivated there than I live in Texas, like, and I just came from working with Israelis. Like, there's just different cultures in that. And dude, everybody on the marketing team knows, like, sometimes I am coming from a place of love, and I'm coming from a place that I want them to be better. And one of the hills I will die on is there will never be an ad hominem attack for me ever. It's never about the person, it's about the work. But like, if you're not doing good, dude, I have no problem mincing words. And I've found that, will you lose some talent? Maybe, but it's better off for it, because culture can actually lift talent up, and culture can actually bring people that might have not had the ability to really have the ability. And when you start mixing cultures, or you start watering down your culture because you can't say the quiet thing out loud, you can get into some really, really challenging places where you start spending mental cycles on how to communicate it versus what to communicate. And I think that can be a really, really bad place to be, especially for talented people, because they just want to cook. And for me, every single talented person that I've ever worked with wants, like, when you're a killer, dude, you want the coach to yell at you. When the coach stops yelling at you, that's when you get nervous, because you know what? The coaches realize this person's cooked. There's no point for me to even use, like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but I know when people are on the way out, when I need to graduate them, when they turn something in that is so far off the mark that you don't even know where to come from in terms of feedback on it. Where, like, again, I told you about, hey, I tell you what I need when I need it. And when you turn this in and it's so bad and you think it's reasonable, that's almost the same level of me of there's just no reason for me to put any more effort into you, because you are so far from being saved that I need to go. One, I also think it's more empathetic, where it's like, this person just might be over their skis, or you don't know what they got going on in their life or whatever, and maybe this job is stressing them out. But at the end of the day, we're all capitalists. And again, I am for very what am I trying to say? Very, not lofty, very generous severance packages. I don't think you should kick people out in the street. I'm very for very generous severance packages, but I am very pro slow to hire, quick to fire. Like, if somebody's not working, and every single one of my hires, this is something that I was really fascinated by when I look back and kind of do a regression mentally. Every single one of my hires had huge wins early. Every single one of my fires might have had wins mid to late, but they never had the early wins. And
they always have a story around why there's no wins.
Yeah, and there's a story and this and that, but it was more so really interesting to me where every single one of the killers that I've hired always had early wins, dude. And I don't know if that's just a psychological thing of, like, it's better to succeed early than mid to late. But it was always really fascinating to me. And so that was one of the things where, dude, the only caveat I will say, and it sucks because it's big bets, but you have to give VP, SVP, C-suite time to cook. That's the only caveat I'll say. 6 months to 9 months, you have to give it to them. But man, it sucks because they're not going to work out, and you're just on borrowed time because you want to let them see if they can save themselves. But that's, I don't know, it is what it is, where
people is the hardest thing, dude. Like, I think,
and companies are people.
Oh, they are. I mean, no matter what anyone says, like, okay, hey, you have this product, and everyone's going to come back, but there will be one day an AI company with one person, and that will be that will be the $1 billion company, and that will be the story. and no one will actually see their P&L to see how many contractors they had on staff.
Brother.
Like it is it's the same thing. It's like I coded this one thing, but like, dude, it's hogwash. It's complete
It's the
hogwash.
same people that are like, dude, AI is going to put all these SaaS companies out of business. How many SaaS apps have you built, brother? None. And you're like, okay, cool. So it's like, it's the same people that are talking. Like, again, I think there's a certain aspect of like, yes, there's some really transformative, step changing things with AI. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But what I'm trying to say is there's so much more to that, where I have a buddy of mine who's smartest guy I know, just uber nerdy, just brilliant 3-brained engineer. And if you told him about Dropbox, like, dude, I can just write a curl and then do this and then spin up an AWS server, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like,
and if you were going to build Dropbox,
nobody's going to do that.
Dropbox, dude.
Yeah,
like
nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
So I think people have this like Typeform's an HTML wrapper. It's over $1 billion valuation right now. So I think the people that talking about these things, that there's so much more to the quote unquote code for a SaaS app.
Well, so one thing I've been having kind of a funny, I don't know, I've been looking at social media a bit recently with a different lens, and you and I met through social media, so like it's fantastic. It's been a gift to me. It still is. But if you think about the people that talk, it is not the smallest companies. Exactly. They usually don't care about what you're saying. And it's not the big companies. They don't care about what you're saying. It's this middle group of people that actually is probably the smallest group. Yeah, totally.
It's the midwit meme. It's the midwit
exactly.
meme.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about it, so like you talk about AI specifically. Do you know how behind the Fortune 1000 is on AI? Like, they will not be able to get AI through procurement and finance for the next 10 years.
Dude, McKinsey's making, I think, 1/3 of their P&L is coming from AI services, and they have 69,000 people working on the AI services that they're servicing, the Fortune 500, 1,000, what have you.
Exactly. And so similarly, like the young companies, like they don't understand how to use some of these. It's not their fault, by the way. But everyone who is a voice is in this, like, I'm starting to become a company, or I'm starting to become so big that I don't give a fuck about what these people are saying. And that's the only people that we hear from. The Jensen, it has only become loud in the last year and a half. Before that, dude, 3 years ago, you said, who's Jensen Huang? I was like, I don't know who the fuck that guy is. I have no idea.
Dude, NVIDIA actually didn't rip until 2 years ago.
My point exactly. Same thing. Jack Ma was really loud for a while. Obviously, he got silenced for a bit.
Ant was going to be the biggest IPO ever in the world, and then it was crazy too. It wasn't even like aggressive comment. It was like, oh, your wife's hair is blonde, not black. You know what I mean? It wasn't even that offensive, and the guy got fucking disappeared. That's wild.
Listen, man, you sometimes
the CCP don't fuck around, dude.
Don't mess around. So I think kind of going back to the closing the loop on the management thing, you have to know who you are and what you value. I have fallen in the trap. I don't do this much anymore, but try to save people. Like, I can make them better. I can make them better. And the simple thing is, once you learn that people save themselves, and like I think I've told this story maybe on a couple of podcasts, but like I got pipped early in my career, and I looked the manager in the face and I was like, hey, you think I can fix this? And he's like, no, I don't think you have the aptitude to do it. Bro, it was like coach being like, yo, dude, I don't think you're going to start this week. No, fuck you. Watch this. The thing is, he gave me the greatest gift I've ever gotten in my life. He told me, I don't care how nice of a person you are. I only care about what you can do with this spreadsheet. Everything else doesn't fucking matter to me. So you know what I did? I worked 18 hours a day for a month straight until I got to my review. And he's like, yo, dude, pretty fucking good. I didn't think you'd actually get here, but yo, let's go. My point in telling that story is like, he was clear with me about what was not working. And it's your choice to opt into, let's fucking go, or I'm going to fucking go.
And I think so personally for me, that's what I strive to do. So there's a great biography, shout out Sean Brandt, recommended to me from Audit, Isidore Sharp's, the guy from Four Seasons.
Yeah.
Wonderful read. Fantastic. Super proper G. I mean, wonderful dude. But in there, he talked about he had to nuke pretty much 90% of his leadership team because they couldn't support or learn the culture that he wanted to have. And one of the lines in there that I loved where he was like, we had to turn cops into coaches, where stop looking at looking for people breaking the law and start coaching them up. And he had a great line in there where it was show them the gap. Like, here's where you are. Here's where I need you to be. This is a gap. And for me, that's how I try and manage. It's just for me, I don't have, to your point, you get one. Like, you get one mess up. Hey, then no problem, whatever. I don't care what happened. I don't need to hear what happened. I don't need the sob story, whatever it is. It could be very, very relevant. It could be, I don't care, dude. I just don't care. I'm here to kill. And if that's not your vibe, it's totally fine. You're a super talented person. You're going to be able to find places where other employments will work. I'll even give you a reference, bro. I don't care, but I need you to kill. And once you mess up once, dude, it's like, you don't get another one. So like, that's just because going back to the saving people never work, or for me anyways, never works at the highest level. Like you get a reality check and you come back, or that's just who you are. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. You can be gainfully employed other places. I am speaking specifically with my management style, but I need people, and sorry for all the weird, like morbid analogies, but I need people that I can go to war with, that I can trust, that I can't double check your work. That is not my job. My job is to put the right people in the right positions that I can trust to get the job done. And if they don't get the job done, they'll fix it. And if they can't fix it, that's when they'll come to me and say, hey, I've tried everything here. I need your help. That I have no problem with. But the people that need the hand holding, but to be fair, if that happens repetitively, then it's like, dude, I'm not doing your job for you. But like, if there's a place
one thing I share with people a lot is like, look, you want to move up in your career. Tell me what you want. So people say, well, I want to get to this. I want to get to that. I want to get to this in this time frame. Okay. Do you want to know the very simple answer on how to do that? Don't ever come to me with a problem ever again. Solve the thing.
Yes.
The bridge between IC and manager, quote unquote, is solve the problem. Be a self-fulfilling or self-actualizing organism unto yourself. The minute you come to me and say, I have this local maxima, I start going, all right, let's see. Here's this thing. Like you said, coach them. If the same thing keeps happening repetitively across a new set of problems, well, now we have a data set that tells me you don't actually think that deeply about the problem, and you're not actually willing to go hard on fixing it. Because, dude, the internet is infinitely expansive. You can figure it out.
Yes.
I am not amazing at math. Can I put a projection together? Yeah, I can. Can I sit there and have a conversation with a data scientist? Yes, I can. But I taught myself how to do it. And it was just a function of time. So we were talking about body over mind. So now I can use my mind, but before I just had to use my body to enrich my body to enrich my mind. I would spend hours and hours and hours poring over stuff, thousands of dollars paying to go into classes. Well, now it's more about, hey, I have a relationship with Rabah. I have a relationship with this person, that person. Let me spend time with them so they can challenge me, so that I can go figure out how to take myself to the next level. But if you're an IC trying to go to that level, dude, it is pretty fucking simple. Hit ChatGPT, hit fucking Perplexity, ask a question. They'll give you an answer. Go and actually go to the source code. This is the issue, dude. People don't go to the source code on information all the way. I'll never forget during that period of time where I was having those challenges at a company, data scientists had a dashboard. I was like, dude, this data doesn't look right. So I went and spent a bunch of, I exported, I don't know, like 50 different data sets and just was playing around. Finally, the next day, or 2 days later, I came back to data. I'm like, dude, this data we're benchmarking off of is wrong. She says, no, that's impossible. Here you go. Here's what I have for you. 10 minutes later, she goes, holy shit, you're right. You rewrote it the right way. Dude, I have no business in that conversation, right? But I was willing to go to the source code. And if you dig deep enough, you will always find the answer. And my stepdad has a saying. He's like, look, if you sit quietly enough with a question, you will always find the answer. People don't want to go deep. They just want a quick answer. It's like, that's not how this shit works, dude. Meaningful solutions come from meaningful time spent on those problems.
Dude, Jack Dorsey has one of my all-time favorite lines when he was talking about when he was super stressed out about Twitter, and that's when he went in his little kind of yoga psychedelic journey, and he was like, I was operating at a pace where I was just coming to the first solution, not the best solution. And I just love that quote. But yeah, I mean, dude, kind of candidly wrapping up. Oh man, I'm gonna forget his name now, but he's an absolute monster. The ex HubSpot guy. The fuck is his name? He's brilliant. Brian Callahan. Callahan, right?
Yes,
Brian
Callahan.
Brilliant. He
awesome,
has
dude.
this incredible memo with like all these little bullet points that he learned from growing HubSpot from like a bazillion to bazillion dollars. And one of them in there was you can't teach smart. And like, again, I'm not, it is what it is. And again, I don't find a lot of value in judging people. But if you just don't have the facilities, man, you can't be on my team. And
well, one thing I've been thinking about with results with regard to that is like urgency, and their levels of urgency. I wrote a tweet, didn't get much engagement, so fuck everybody for not.
They never do. You throw a shit post out, dude. It's the best tweet of the year. You drop like life-changing advice, and like you and your mom like it.
Yeah, so she did like it actually. And it's levels of urgency, right? There's the urgency. There's like 3 levels of urgency. There's the cultural urgency that you have around solving problems for customers, but you have to really live this. There's the one that you imbue as a leader. That's actually kind of problematic because sometimes that can be really negative and push the team in the wrong direction and go after the wrong metrics, everything. And then there's the one you can't teach that is seated in a person. This is what I fucking hire for. Is this person crazy? Right? Because they just want to solve problems and they're a machine.
Completely agree.
Because everything else I can add on to that and add incremental value on top of that. But if that person is like, it's the solving problems thing you talked about. The thing that a person who solves the problem on day 1, 2, 3, 4, say week 1, day 0 to day 5, it's because they were thinking about it before and they wanted it really badly. They were like, all right, I have to do this. I have to do this. You can't teach that.
No.
That is just part of that.
And dude, a hill I will die on is unless you're the founder or the CEO, the only thing you should care about is making your boss happy. Like, don't go outside your, like, this is going to sound like really horrible advice, but don't go outside your lane. Don't help other people. Like, take care of your house first. Like, if your house is taken care of first and then your boss is like, hey man, you're doing great work. Can you go jump in on that team or jump on? But man, I used, cause I'm such a people pleaser and I'm very good at what I do. And I was basically ended up doing everybody else's job for them and they were getting promotions and I looked like a bottom tier performer because I wasn't handling the shit that they hired me for. Nobody's hiring this person to go and jump around the org to go fix that person and go fix this thing. Yeah, you know what those are called? They're called consultants. You're not a consultant. You are hired to do your role, and your role is given to you by your boss. And only thing that matters is to make your boss happy. If your boss is happy, your life is good, man. And that is the only thing. So understand how your boss communicates, understand what they value. Do they value expediency? Do they value quality? Do they value, like, you need to figure out just how to make that person happy, because if you don't, you're going to be right but wrong. And that is a horrible feeling because you are right. But guess what? It's not your business. It's not your boat to drive. Everybody, unless you're the CEO or founder, you're an assistant coach, you're making recommendations, they're making decisions.
Let's kill it there. This feels like we've done this episode before. We're just smarter or more seasoned now.
It felt good. It felt good.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the show, folks. Chase, how can people get connected with you? Are you good? You want to unveil the stuff or keep it under the thing?
Yeah.
Well, this time's yours, my friend.
You want to hit me on Twitter? I'm Chase Mohseni. LinkedIn, Chase Mohseni. You can email me at chase@creativeos.com.
Oh,
there we go.
There we go. Get this. He's building some really cool. Go check out Creative OS. It's really monumental, man. It's been really cool to see. Really, you've cultivated this kind of ember into a flame, dare I say, verging on a bonfire. So I'm very excited to see, and I've seen the product roadmap for the next 6 months, which is really, really exciting. And I think the team you're building around you is really, really impressive. I have nothing but, I think Nick is one of the just top floor operators, man. He's just a wonderful human, and he has a
Could not
lot
agree more.
more empathy, and he's the person I would hire to deal with the soldiers. I just don't, just how I grew up, man, hard immigrant dad. Like my dad loved me, it was great, but I just grew up so hard that I just don't suffer fools. And sometimes it can come across as being a jerk when I'm not. I just want, I don't know how to interact with people who don't have the same effort and drive that I do. And I find sometimes that is hard. It's like the Kobe Bryant. I mean, obviously I'm not comparing myself to Kobe Bryant, but all these top level people just don't suffer fools, man. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with suffering fools. We need empathetic, wonderful humans in the world. But when I
It's
get
SaaS Mamba, dude. That's what you are.
SaaS
The
Mamba,
SaaS
that's a
Mamba.
good one. But when I'm in the seat, man, I'm here to print and do the best work of my life. And I know if I'm not doing the best work of my life, that I need to change something in my life, because that is where I find a lot of fulfillment. But dude, this conversation was amazing.
Yeah, sensational, dude. Only thing I would add or like say to that is, one thing Rabah does really well is he questions like, hey, am I doing the best work of my life? And the best thing you can do is be very introspective with work, personal, anything like that, and say like, yo, is this thing working for me? Is this thing serving me? So like,
it's very hard.
This whole conversation was about this, and it is so hard, dude.
It is very hard, man. And I've done things for the money. And again, do what you have to do when you have to do. But the fastest, when I really started making money was when I had the ability to say no. And that I think should be a goal for people, for the young people. And I also really subscribed to learning your 20s, earning your 30s. Like I wanted to have an absolute cornucopia of skills and value creation levers that I knew I'm going to insulate myself. Like I literally, when I was poor, dude, there was a whole stoic thing about what was one thing you did today to insulate yourself from poverty. And like I would just knock on that door. And again, I'd sharpen the sword daily. And again, it happens slower than you think and then faster than you think, but make sure you're prepared when that opportunity strikes. And then I'd also think, as you get older and you get skills, you need to start putting buckets out there that the universe can pour into and reward you. And so, but all of that's to say, it really does matter. You should be a good human. You should help people out when it's cheap for you and really, really meaningful for them. I try and pay stuff for it as much as possible. And people did that for me. So I think it definitely matters, but, at the end of the day,
back the bag.
All right, folks, speaking of paper, we have a fantastic virtual paper that goes out every week called The Geometry of Growth. We just moved over to Beehive. Shout out Tyler. Fantastic platform. I'll also be starting my own newsletter and then hopefully a little community with this guy over there. So be on the lookout for that. But Geometry of Growth, fantastic newsletter curated by the indomitable Alexa Kilroy. You can subscribe right on our site, vermontcommerce.com. And then if you want to create funnels, just like you create ads, to make personalized journeys for all of your customer personas, jobs to be done, however you segment your market, we are here for you. We are the connective tissue between content and commerce. We just launched a bunch of new features. We have our agentic personality Pierre in the app now. So go play around with that if you'd like. And you can book a demo right at vermontcommerce.com. Chase, as always, man, these are my favorite conversations. And like I say, I know when it was a great podcast, when I had more energy leaving than when I showed up, because this is getting a little long in the tooth on my side. You're in that barbaric PST where you're still living the dream over there, but we're rounding out the workday like real men over here in the central time zone. But love you, brother. Thank you so much. Man. Thank you for all the light and awesomeness you bring to the world, and thank you, all wonderful listeners, for making it through another episode of The Equation of Excellence. Oh my gosh, I totally buried the lead. Last question. I ask it at the end of every podcast, and sorry, I did the closer, so this is what we'll close on. What's your equation of excellence? What is excellence a function of for you?
When someone says that's a good question, it's because they're vamping. It's a good question. What is my equation of excellence? You should have told me this before. I would have had a really concise,
You
cogent
would have
answer.
listened to at least one show. It's the end of every show.
Dude, I literally have every show when someone is saying, what are your socials? And I'm like, I'm always out. That is my way. That is my marker to get out of every single show. My equation of excellence is pretty simple. Listen to your customers, whether they're internal, i.e., your team, or they are your external customers. They will never lead you astray. The thing you have to have on top of all of that is a POV that you have on the world. If you're running a company, an organization, everything, the thing you're actually being paid for is the way you see the world.
Yes.
Because that's unique. Everything else can be bought. Your POV and the way you see the world and the way you put things together, that's magic. So don't, like, this guy right here taught me that I could be myself and still be a killer, legitimately. And let my freak flag fly a little bit and still have a good time. And your POV plus your empathy for people and your obsession with excellence are the three things that will actually drive massive impact for you. And every time I've deviated from that kind of three-tiered or that pyramid approach, I have not succeeded.
I love it. Beautiful answer from a beautiful human. Thank you again, Chase, for taking the time out of your super busy schedule. All right, folks, that's all we got. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.